At Mission Repair, we love handheld technology as much as you do, and we're dedicated to keeping yours in great operating condition for a long life.
Hello and welcome to another Mission Repair how-to video. Today we're going to show you how to replace the dock and charging port assembly, which contains the speaker and microphone and most of the electronics at the bottom of the phone. Using this pre-assembled part is going to make the repair a lot easier for someone to do it at home. If you don't use the assembly, then you have to solder on these connections for the speaker and the microphone, which can be very difficult and time-consuming. Start with removing the SIM card by using a paper clip or your SIM card removal tool. Alright, now we're going to use a size 00 Phillips screwdriver to remove two screws on the bottom of the phone. They're one on each side of the charging port. Then we're going to use a suction cup towards the bottom of the phone and gently pull up just until we get a little bit of a gap. Gently lift up the LCD assembly and disconnect the 1, 2, and 3 connectors. The 1 and 2 connector, you simply just get underneath it and pop it up. And the number 3 connector has this little lever. You just flip that up, but it stays attached to the board. Using a spudger or other non-conductive tool, we're going to remove 4 more connections from the logic board. All these connections are real easy to get off. Just use your non-conductive tool and get underneath them and they'll all just pop right up. Alright, now we're going to remove the screws that hold the logic board into place. They're all pretty easy to see except for the one on the bottom underneath the number 7 connector. It's beneath a do not remove sticker. One thing that's important to note is that when you remove the screws, you want to lay them out in a pattern where you can remember how they go back in, because the screws look all the same, but some of them have a collar, some don't. They're not exactly the same, so it's important to lay them out this way so you know how they go back in when you reassemble the phone. Now we're going to take out the logic board, so lift up a little bit here on the bottom, clear these cables out of the way. And then we're also going to need to loosen up the camera, which is up at the other end here. It just needs to be pulled out of its housing there. Do not disconnect it from the board. This piece I just shook out is a retainer for the camera. It just goes on top of the camera and then the screw goes through it. Here's the inside of the phone. Here's the docking port assembly we're going to replace. There's 3 screws left that we got to get to, one on each side of the docking port or the charging port, and one up here. Now this screw is different than the other 2, but they're pretty easy to tell apart. I still just set them off into a different location so I know which screws they are. Alright, now that we got the screws out, we can remove it. This part usually comes out really easy. In this instance, it was jammed in between the batteries, so just take a spudger if this happens to you and gently pry up on it. Alright, so here's the whole assembly removed. Well, I got a piece of hair on here I got to get off. But there's a microphone right there by this piece of hair. On the other side of the dock is the speaker port right here. And there's the microphone again. The antenna on the back side. And this, if you order the part from us, this is exactly how it'll come. Here's one that we sell. It's got all the parts. It's just a bolt-in piece. You can see they're exactly the same here. In this video, we're just going to put the same part right back in because there was nothing wrong with it. I'm just doing this for illustration. One thing I want you to do before you reassemble the phone is make sure that these grills are still here. There's 2 holes at the bottom, one for the microphone, one for the speaker. They each have a little grill in them, and once in a while when you take that assembly out, one of those grills will come with it. So just take a look in there before you put your new assembly back in place. Alright, that's it for the disassembly. Now we're going to go ahead and reassemble this. For the interest of time, we're going to go pretty fast through this, but this docking assembly just slips right back into place. One thing to note is that the tabs on the docking assembly go above the tabs on the back case where you put the screws in. And just make sure that you get your microphone, because the microphone's a little bit loose, make sure it gets set into that housing pretty well. And then replace the screws. All right, when putting the logic board in, take note of this clip right here. The logic board goes underneath that. And the rest of it just sets down into place. Just make sure you get these cables out of the way. And then go ahead and reinstall all the screws. Now I like to install them all loosely at first. Make sure they all go in, logic board's in the right spot, feels right, and then go back and tighten them all up. Once you get all the screws in, you can go ahead and reconnect the 4 cables that attach to the logic board. Just make sure you line them up and then just press straight down on them. They connect pretty easily. Now we're going to connect the LCD assembly. You want to do the number 3 cable first, and it just slides in to that connector. It's a little bit tricky sometimes to get it in there. Just be patient with it, work with it. And once it's in there, then just flip that latch down to lock it into place. The number 2 and number 1 connectors just push straight down like the other ones on the main logic board. And then just snap the whole assembly down and reinstall the 2 bottom screws. After that, you just reinstall your SIM card and you're back in business. Now, I hope this video helped you. Please visit our website at www.missionrepair.com for all of your iPhone, iPod, and Apple computer needs.
Mission Repair is the economic and green solution for handheld technology in the 21st century. Don't despair, trust Mission Repair.